The emergency transmission arrived at the human vessel while it drifted near the outer colonies. Commander Tae-1 stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the message repeat itself on the main screen. The symbol of the Galactic Council pulsed with urgency, something he had never seen in his 15 years of service. "Play it again," Tae-1 said to his communications officer. The hologram materialized in the center of the bridge. A towering crystalline being appeared, its body reflecting light in sharp angles. This was Chancellor Valerius, the leader of the Galactic Council. The being's voice carried weight and something else that surprised Tae-1 desperation. "We require Earth's immediate military assistance. The Vrax Dominion has broken through our defensive lines. 17 of our fleets have fallen. We are losing this war." The message ended abruptly. The bridge crew remained silent. Captain Jisoo stepped forward from her station, her face showing the same shock that everyone felt. The Galactic Council had always treated humanity like children. They gave Earth associate membership only after decades of begging. They restricted human travel, limited human trade, and made it clear that humans were barely civilized enough to join their grand alliance. Now they wanted help. "Get me Admiral Kyung-suk on a secure channel," Tae-1 ordered. "And pull up everything we have on the Vrax Dominion." Within minutes, data flooded the screens around the bridge. Tactical Officer Soo-min organized the information into readable formats. The Vrax Dominion had appeared 3 years ago from beyond the galactic rim. They fought with mechanical precision, adapting to every strategy the Council threw at them. Their ships were efficient, their tactics flawless, and their advance unstoppable. 40 systems conquered, Soo-min reported, his voice steady but his eyes betraying concern. The Council lost over 2 million military personnel. Civilian casualties are estimated in the billions. Jisoo pulled up a tactical map showing the Vrax advance. Red markers indicated conquered territory, spreading like a disease across the galactic arm. Blue markers showed Council defensive positions, each one falling back week after week. At the current rate of advance, the Vrax would reach the Council's core worlds within 6 months. "Why us?" asked Lieutenant Jae-hee from her intelligence station. "We barely have a space fleet. The Council has hundreds of species with advanced militaries." Tae-1 didn't answer immediately. He opened a classified file on his personal terminal, one that few humans outside Earth's military command had access to. It contained humanity's complete military history, from ancient tribal warfare to the devastating global conflicts that nearly destroyed Earth centuries ago. The Council had records of some human wars, but they didn't understand what they were reading. They saw numbers and dates but missed the underlying truth. "Sir, Admiral Kyung-suk is on the line," the communications officer announced. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, her gray hair pulled back tightly. Behind her, Tae-1 could see the operations center of Earth's military headquarters, filled with officers reviewing data. "I've seen the Council's message," Kyung-suk said without preamble. "Colonel Hyan-woo has been analyzing their tactical reports for the past hour. The Council has been fighting this war like a chess match. The Vrax fight the same way. That's why nothing changes." "And they think we can break the stalemate?" Tae-1 asked. "They don't know what they're asking for," Kyung-suk replied, echoing Tae-1's own thoughts. "They want our help, but they've never seen how humans actually fight wars." "Not really. They've read our history books, but they don't understand." Jisoo moved closer to the screen. "Admiral, the Council has technology centuries ahead of ours. Their shields are stronger, their weapons more powerful, their ships faster. What can we possibly offer?" Kyung-suk smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Captain, when was the last time Earth fought a war?" 237 years ago, Jisoo answered immediately. "The unification conflict. And how did it end?" Jisoo paused, understanding dawning on her face. Total reconstruction. Complete demilitarization of the aggressor nations. 50 years of supervised rebuilding. Those nations are now our closest allies. Exactly, Kyung-suk said. The Council fights wars to achieve favorable peace terms. The Vraks fight wars to expand territory. Humans fight wars to make sure wars never happen again. She leaned forward, her expression serious. Tae-1, set course for Council headquarters. I'm sending Colonel Hyan-woo and a full tactical team to meet you there. General Valeris wants to discuss terms. What terms will we offer? Tae-1 asked. Complete operational command. No restrictions on tactics. No interference from Council oversight. Kyung-suk's voice was firm. If they want our help ending this war, they need to let us end it our way. The transmission ended. Tae-1 turned to his navigation officer. Set course for Kellis Prime, maximum speed. As the ship's engines powered up, Jisoo approached Tae-1's command chair. Sir, you look troubled. Tae-1 nodded slowly, still staring at the tactical display showing the Vraks advance. The Council thinks they're hiring military consultants. They think we'll show them some new tactics, maybe a clever strategy they haven't considered. And we're not? Jisoo asked. No, Captain. If we do this, we're not just fighting a war. We're reshaping the galaxy's understanding of what war means. Tae-1 pulled up images from Earth's history cities rebuilt from ash. Former enemies shaking hands. Peace that lasted centuries because the roots of conflict were torn out completely. The Council wants us to stop the Vraks, but we don't stop wars. We end them permanently. The horizon's edge jumped to faster than light speed, carrying humanity's answer toward the Galactic Council. In the cargo bay, Colonel Hyan-woo's transport ship had already docked, filled with tactical officers, strategic planners, and military historians. They brought with them data files the Council had never seen, the complete, unfiltered truth of human warfare. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant when humans went to war. The war room on Kellis Prime could hold 500 beings comfortably. Today it held the military commanders of 15 species, all staring at Captain Jisoo as she stood before the massive tactical display. The air smelled of ozone and fear. These were the greatest military minds in the Galactic Council, and they were losing. You wish to know how humans fight? Jisoo asked, her voice calm. Then I will show you. She activated the display. Images of Earth appeared, showing cities destroyed by ancient wars. Then those same cities rebuilt, gleaming and prosperous. Then images of Earth's enemies becoming Earth's closest friends. We do not fight to win territory, Jisoo continued. We do not fight to gain resources. We do not fight to achieve favorable treaties. Admiral Thone Rick, a reptilian being covered in blue scales, hissed in confusion. Then why do you fight at all? We fight to make sure no one ever has to fight again. The room erupted in confused chatter. Colonel Hyan-woo stepped forward, his uniform crisp despite the long journey. He carried a data tablet containing humanity's complete military doctrine, translated into galactic standard language. Let me explain, Hyan-woo said, his voice cutting through the noise. 300 years ago, Earth fought a global war. Nearly 1 billion humans died. Cities burned. Nations collapsed. When it ended, we had a choice. We could sign treaties, draw new borders, and wait for the next war. Or we could make sure there would be no next war. How? Asked Commander Phalis, an insectoid being whose species had fought wars for 10,000 years. Complete reconstruction, Hyan-woo replied. He pulled up detailed reports. We dismantled the military systems of the aggressor nations entirely. Not reduced, eliminated. We rebuilt their governments from nothing. We educated their children in new ways. We stayed for 50 years, supervising every aspect of their society. Chancellor Valeris stood, his crystalline body refracting the light into rainbow patterns. That is conquest. That is occupation. No, Jisoo said firmly. Conquest is taking what belongs to others. Occupation is controlling through force. What we did was transformation. The nations we rebuilt became democracies. Their people became prosperous. Today, they are our strongest allies and closest friends. General Bacter, a massive being covered in armor plates, laughed bitterly. You expect us to believe that defeated enemies became friends? That is propaganda. Admiral Kyung-suk entered the room at that moment, accompanied by Lieutenant Jae-hee and a team of human officers. It is verifiable fact, General. We brought records, interview transcripts, economic data, population surveys covering 2 centuries. Every word is true. The holographic display changed, showing a human woman sitting across from a camera. My grandmother fought in the unification conflict, the woman said in the recording. She fought against the Northern Alliance. Her brother died in combat. After the war, she helped rebuild Alliance cities. She taught their children. 50 years later, when she died, Alliance representatives came to her funeral. They called her a hero. Not Earth's hero. Their hero. The room fell silent. Colonel Hyun-woo let the silence stretch before speaking again. The Council has been fighting the Vraks for 3 years. You've destroyed their fleets. You've bombed their installations. You've killed millions of their soldiers. And yet, they keep coming. Why? Because they have no fear of death, Admiral Thonrik answered. Because their culture glorifies warfare. Wrong, Hyun-woo said. They keep coming because you haven't given them a reason to stop. You fight them in space. You fight them on border worlds. You never strike at the source. You never eliminate the systems that make war possible. Chancellor Valerius's body seemed to dim. You are suggesting we attack their homeworld, that we slaughter civilians. No, Jisoo said, her voice sharp. We are suggesting we end the system that creates soldiers. We are suggesting we dismantle the machinery of war at its source. Civilians are not our targets. The government, the military infrastructure, the educational systems that teach young Vraks to glorify conquest, those are our targets. Commander Falis clicked his mandibles nervously. This is barbaric. This is not civilized warfare. Lieutenant Jae-hee spoke for the first time, her voice quiet but clear. There is no such thing as civilized warfare. There is only warfare that ends quickly, and warfare that drags on until civilizations collapse. You have been fighting civilized warfare for 3 years. How many billions have died? How many more will die before you negotiate a peace treaty? And then, 5 years later, when the Vraks rebuild and attack again, how many will die then? The alien commanders looked at each other. None of them had an answer. Admiral Kyung-suk moved to the center of the room. The Council asked for Earth's help. We are offering it. But you need to understand what you are asking for. If we do this, we do it our way. Complete operational command. No restrictions. No oversight. When we are done, the Vraks will never threaten the galaxy again. Because you will exterminate them, General Bacter said coldly. No, Kyung-suk replied. Because we will transform them. In 20 years, the Vraks will be peaceful. In 50 years, they will be your allies. In 100 years, they will be an example to the galaxy of what is possible. This is madness, Chancellor Valerius said, but his voice wavered. This is reality, Colonel Hyun-woo said. You have tried everything else. You have tried diplomacy. You have tried economic pressure. You have tried conventional warfare. Nothing has worked. Now you have 2 choices. Continue losing this war slowly, or let us end it quickly. The room descended into argument. Some commanders supported the human proposal. Others rejected it as barbaric. The debate raged for hours. But slowly, inevitably, the reality of their situation became clear. The council was losing. The Vraks were winning. Something had to change. Finally, Chancellor Valeris raised one crystalline arm, and the room fell silent. We will grant you operational command for one battle, one test of your methods. If you succeed, we will discuss further cooperation. If you fail, or if you commit atrocities, we will remove you from command immediately. Admiral Kyung-suk nodded. Acceptable. Captain Ji-soo will command the operation. Colonel Hyun-woo will serve as strategic advisor. Give us 2 weeks to prepare. As the council commanders filed out of the room, still arguing among themselves, Taewon approached Ji-soo. Can you really do what you promised? End the war in one battle? Ji-soo pulled up a star map showing the Vraks' home system. We won't end the war in one battle, Commander. We'll end it in 72 hours. The battle is just the beginning. The real work comes after. She highlighted 3 points on the map: the Vraks' capital, their military command center, and their main communication hub. All 3 were on the Vraks' homeworld, deep in their territory, protected by defensive fleets that no council force had ever penetrated. We're going straight to the source, Ji-soo said quietly. And we're going to change everything. The council observers aboard the Resolute Dawn watched in horror as Admiral Kyung-suk gave the order. The human fleet, 30 ships in total, engaged their faster-than-light drives and jumped directly toward the Vraks' home system. They bypassed every defensive position, ignored every patrol fleet, and left the Vraks' massive border armada behind them. This is suicide, whispered Ambassador Thelenar, a council representative sent to monitor the operation. The Vraks' homeworld has orbital defense platforms that can destroy entire fleets. Captain Ji-soo stood at the tactical station, her hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. Those platforms are designed to fight fleets that approach normally. We are not approaching normally. The jump ended. The human fleet materialized in high orbit above Vraks Prime, the homeworld of the Dominion. Below them stretched a planet of gray cities and military installations. Millions of Vraks lived on that world, and not one of them had ever experienced war on their own soil. All ships, begin deployment, Ji-soo ordered calmly. The Vraks' orbital defenses opened fire immediately. Energy beams and missile batteries targeted the human vessels. But tactical officer Sung-min had planned for this. The human ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were carefully calculated. They jinked and weaved, staying just ahead of the tracking systems. Defense platforms are using predictive algorithms, Sung-min reported. They calculate where we will be based on where we were. We're changing vectors too quickly for them to compensate. 3 human ships took hits. Their shields flared but held. Meanwhile, marine assault carriers moved into position. Sergeant Minho stood in the drop bay of one carrier, surrounded by 200 soldiers in combat armor. Listen up, Minho shouted over the noise of the engines. We are not here to kill Vraks civilians. We are not here to destroy their cities. We have 3 targets. The communication hub controls their fleet coordination. The government center controls their political structure. The military academy trains their officers. We take those 3 locations, we cut off the head of the Dominion. The drop pods launched. Hundreds of them fell through Vraks Prime's atmosphere, shielded from detection by the chaos of the orbital battle. The Vraks' home fleet scrambled to respond, but they had never trained for an invasion of their own world. Their tactics, their strategies, everything was designed for offensive warfare and other systems. Captain Dong-hyun led the assault on the military academy. His battalion landed in the training grounds just as dawn broke across that part of the planet. Vraks officer cadets rushed out to meet them, expecting to die gloriously in defense of their homeworld. Instead, Dong Haiyan's troops used non-lethal weapons. Stunners and sonic disruptors dropped the young Vracs without killing them. Within 30 minutes, the academy was secure. Not a single cadet died, though hundreds were unconscious. Secure all data files. Dong Haiyan ordered his technical specialists. I want every curriculum, every training manual, every propaganda video. We need to understand how they teach warfare. At the government center, Lieutenant Jae-hee coordinated a more delicate operation. Our team had spent weeks analyzing intercepted Vracs communications. They knew the building layout, the security protocols, and most importantly, the schedule of the High Command. The Vracs leaders were meeting in their underground bunker, believing themselves safe from any attack. They had not considered that human intelligence gathering was not based on technology alone. A Vracs defector, rescued from a border world 3 months ago, had provided detailed information about the bunker's location and access codes. Jae-hee's team breached the bunker using shaped charges that cut through the reinforced doors like paper. Smoke grenades filled the corridors. The Vracs guards fired blindly, but human soldiers wearing thermal imaging equipment moved through the smoke like ghosts. Sergeant Minho reached the command chamber first. Inside, 5 Vracs leaders sat around a circular table, their gray skin marked with military decorations. They reached for weapons, but Minho's team was faster. Within seconds, all 5 were restrained, unharmed but captured. "This is impossible," one of them hissed in the Vracs language. "We are untouchable. Our world is sacred." "Nothing is untouchable," Minho replied through a translator device. "Nothing is sacred in war. That is why war must end." The communication hub proved the most difficult target. It was heavily defended and hardened against attack. But Colonel Haiyan Wu had not planned a direct assault. Instead, a small team of specialists had arrived on Vracs Prime weeks ago, disguised as traders from a neutral species. They had planted microscopic devices throughout the hub's systems. Now, as the orbital battle raged above, those devices activated. The communication hub did not explode or fail. Instead, it broadcast a single message on all Vracs military frequencies. The message showed the captured High Command, alive but restrained, calling for all Vracs fleets to stand down in space. The Vracs home fleet received the message and froze. Without orders, without leadership, they did not know what to do. Their entire military doctrine was based on following commands from the High Command. Now those commanders were prisoners, telling them to surrender. Admiral Kyung-suk watched the Vracs ships power down their weapons one by one. "Send a message to all Vracs vessels," she ordered. "Tell them that any ship that surrenders will be treated with respect. Any crew that lays down arms will be allowed to return home. We are not here to slaughter them." Ambassador Thelner stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 72 hours, he whispered. "The war is over in 72 hours. "No," Jisoo corrected him. "The battle is over in 72 hours. The war has just begun." On the surface of Vracs Prime, human forces secured the 3 key locations. Medical teams treated wounded Vracs soldiers. Engineers began assessing the infrastructure. And Colonel Haiyan Wu stood in the captured government center, looking at the data they had seized. "This is worse than I thought," he said to Tawan, who had joined him on the surface. "Their entire society is built around warfare. From childhood, they are taught that conquest is the highest purpose. Their economy, their culture, their identity, everything depends on constant expansion. Can they be changed?" Taewon asked. Haiyan Wu nodded slowly. "Yes, but it will take decades. We cannot just remove their government and leave. We need to stay. We need to rebuild their entire civilization." Above the planet, the last Vracs warship powered down its weapons and accepted surrender terms. The council observers aboard the human fleet could not believe what they were witnessing. 3 years of brutal warfare ended in 3 days. Millions of Rax soldiers surrendered without a final desperate battle. But as Admiral Kyung-suk had said, this was not the end. This was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, transforming a warrior species into a peaceful one, dismantling a culture of conquest and rebuilding it as a culture of cooperation. The galaxy watched in amazement and fear as human forces settled into occupation of Rax Prime. The Council had asked for a military victory. They were about to learn what humans meant by ending a war. 3 months after the fall of Rax Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Chancellor Valier stood before the assembly, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber's lights in sharp, angry patterns. The humans have violated every principle of civilized warfare, he declared. They have occupied Rax Prime. They have dismantled the Rax government. They show no signs of withdrawing. Ambassador Insu sat calmly in the human delegation section. He had prepared for this moment since the occupation began. Now he stood, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. The Council requested that Earth end the war with the Rax Dominion. We did exactly that. The war is over. Not paused. Not postponed. Over. You have conquered them, shouted Admiral Thonrick. You promised transformation. Instead, you delivered tyranny. Insu activated a holographic display showing scenes from Rax Prime. The images told a story the Council had not expected. Human engineers worked alongside Rax civilians to rebuild damaged infrastructure. Human teachers stood in converted military academies, now civilian schools, educating young Rax in mathematics and art instead of weapons and tactics. Human doctors operated medical clinics treating Rax who had never received proper health care under the military regime. This is not conquest, Insu said quietly. This is what we promised. Transformation? On Rax Prime, Governor Taewon walked through the capital city's main plaza. 6 months ago, this place had been a military parade ground where Rax soldiers demonstrated their prowess. Now it was a marketplace where Rax civilians bought and sold goods, something that had been strictly regulated under the old regime. Beside Taewon walked a young Rax named Dex. The Rax's gray skin was marked with educational tattoos, rather than military ones, a recent change allowed by the new administration. Dex worked as a translator and cultural advisor, helping humans understand Rax society. The elders are unhappy, Dex said, speaking in halting human language. They say you are erasing our culture. Taewon stopped walking and looked at the young Rax. What do you think, Dex? Dex's eyes, large and dark, showed confusion. I do not know. The old ways were all I knew. My parent was a soldier. My parents' parent was a soldier. For 1,000 generations, we have been warriors. And now? Taewon asked gently. Now I am a translator. I help people understand each other. My sibling studies engineering. My cousin wants to be a doctor. Dex paused, struggling with the words. Is this still Rax? If we are not warriors, what are we? Taewon placed a hand on Dex's shoulder. You are still Rax, but you can be Rax and also be engineers, doctors, artists, teachers. Your culture is not your military. Your culture is your people, your language, your history. The military was just one part, and it was destroying you. Specialist Sujin ran educational programs across the planet. She had worked in post-conflict reconstruction on 3 human colony worlds, but the Vrax presented unique challenges. Their entire language was filled with military metaphors. Their art glorified warfare. Their music was marching songs. We cannot simply ban everything, Sujin explained to her team of human and Vrax educators. If we try to erase their culture, we create resentment. Instead, we redirect. We show them that the skills they valued in warfare can be used for peace. She demonstrated with a class of young Vrax students. You were taught to be disciplined soldiers. That discipline now makes you excellent students. You were taught to follow complex orders. That skill now helps you understand mathematics and science. You were taught to work as a unit. That cooperation now builds communities instead of armies. Major One-Sheik's engineering corps transformed the military infrastructure. Weapons factories became manufacturing plants producing civilian goods. Military shipyards now built cargo vessels and exploration ships. The vast underground bunker system, designed to protect the High Command, became a network of storage facilities and emergency shelters for civilians. The Vrax are natural engineers, One-Sheik reported to Governor Tae-won. Their military technology was impressive. Now we are teaching them to use those skills for construction instead of destruction. But not all Vrax accepted the occupation peacefully. Resistance cells formed in some cities, led by former military officers who refused to accept the new order. They planted bombs, attacked human patrols, and distributed propaganda calling for a return to the old ways. Sergeant Min-ho's peacekeeping battalion responded not with overwhelming force, but with careful, measured operations. When they captured resistance fighters, they did not execute them or even imprison them long-term. Instead, they brought them to rehabilitation centers where Dr. Hiram and her team worked. These are not criminals, Hiram explained to her medical staff. They are soldiers who have lost their purpose. We need to help them find a new one. The rehabilitation program was controversial. Some human officers wanted harsher punishment for attacks on their troops. But Hiram insisted on the current approach, backed by Governor Tae-won's authority. One former resistance fighter, a Vrax named Krell, sat across from Hiram in a therapy session. Krell had planted a bomb that injured 3 human soldiers and killed 2 Vrax civilians. "Why you not execute me?" Krell asked, his voice filled with confusion. "I am your enemy. I harmed your people." Hiram looked at him calmly. "Because I understand why you did it. You were a commander in the Vrax military. You had purpose, respect, identity. Then we came and took that away. You felt lost, so you fought back the only way you knew how." "Then you do understand," Krell said bitterly. "Yes, but understanding does not mean agreeing." Hiram pulled up images on her tablet showing the destruction Krell's bomb had caused. "You say you fought for Vrax Prime, but those 2 Vrax who died, they were your people. The bomb you planted was in a district being rebuilt to house civilians who lost their homes in the war. You did not fight for Vrax Prime. You fought against its future." Krell stared at the images, seeing for the first time the Vrax civilians his actions had killed. The realization slowly broke through his anger. Back at the council chambers, Ambassador Insu faced continuing criticism. Chancellor Valeris demanded a timeline for human withdrawal. "When will you return sovereignty to the Vrax people?" the Chancellor asked. Captain Jisoo, attending the session via holographic link from Vrax Prime, answered directly, "When they are ready. Not before. We made the mistake of incomplete victories in our past. We learned from them. If we leave now, within 5 years, the military faction will regain control. Within 10 years, the Vrax will resume their expansion. Everything we have done will be wasted. And how long will ready take?" demanded General Baekter. "A generation," Jisoo replied. "Perhaps 2. The young Vrax like Thex need to grow up in a peaceful society. They need to build careers, start families, create businesses. They need to have something to lose before they will truly choose peace." The council chamber erupted in outrage. Decades of occupation? This was unprecedented. This was unacceptable. But Insu remained calm, waiting for the noise to die down before speaking again. "We understand your concern. But consider the alternative. 3 years of war cost billions of lives. If we leave prematurely and the war resumes, how many more billions will die? We are not occupiers. We are teachers. We are helping the Vrax people learn to live without war. When that lesson is complete, we will leave gladly." The vote came down narrowly in favor of allowing the occupation to continue, but only under strict council oversight. Inspector teams would visit Vrax Prime quarterly to ensure no abuses occurred. On Vrax Prime, Governor Tae-won received news of the council's decision. He stood in his office, looking out at the city below. Lights were coming on as evening fell. Simple thing, but one that would have been impossible during the war. Energy had been rationed strictly for military use. Now civilians could light their homes freely. Dex entered the office carrying reports on the day's educational programs. "The council allows you to stay?" "Yes," Tae-won confirmed. "Good," Dex said quietly. Then, more hesitantly, "My parent wants to meet you." "My parent was a naval commander, was captured in the first battle. Now works in the new cargo shipyards. My parent says the work is satisfying, building instead of destroying. My parent wants to thank you." Tae-won smiled. "I would be honored to meet your parent." This was the real victory, he thought. Not the military triumph, not the captured high command, but this, a former warrior finding satisfaction in peaceful work, wanting to thank their former enemy. This was what ending a war meant. 23 years had passed since the fall of Vrax Prime. The Galactic Council convened in its grand chamber. But today, the atmosphere was different. There was no crisis, no emergency. Today was a celebration. Chancellor Val Iris, older now but still sharp, stood before the assembly. His crystalline body caught the light as he spoke, but his tone had changed from those early, angry days. "We gather today to welcome a new member to full council status. A species that once threatened to destroy us all now stands as an example of what is possible when war ends permanently." The chamber doors opened. A delegation of Vrax entered, led by Dex. The young translator who had helped Governor Tae-won decades ago was now the elected leader of the Vrax Federation, a coalition of democratic states that had replaced the old Dominion. Dex's skin bore no military tattoos. Instead, educational and civic service marks decorated the gray flesh. Behind Dex walked representatives from every Vrax world, each one a civilian leader chosen through peaceful elections. In the audience, former Admiral Kyung-suk sat beside Colonel Hyun-woo. Both had retired from active military service years ago, but they had returned for this ceremony. Around them sat other veterans of the occupation. Sergeant Minho, now a civilian contractor training Vrax peacekeepers. Dr. Hiram, who had established the galaxy's leading center for post-conflict psychology. Major Wonshik, who had stayed on Vrax Prime as an engineering consultant. "I never thought I would see this day," Hyun-woo whispered to Kyung-suk. A Vrax standing before the council, not as a threat, but as a partner. Kyung-suk smiled. "We told them it would take a generation. It took a little longer, but here we are." Dex approached the speaker's platform. The Vrax leader's voice, once halting in human language, now spoke with confidence and clarity. 23 years ago, humanity came to my world. We thought they came as conquerors. We prepared to die gloriously in battle, as our culture had taught us for 1,000 generations. Instead, they taught us something our people had never known, that there is glory in building, not just destroying. That there is honor in healing, not just fighting. That there is purpose in creating peace, not just winning wars. Captain Jisoo, also in attendance though she too had retired from military service, watched the speech with satisfaction. She remembered the terrified young Dex who had acted as translator, confused about identity and purpose. Now that same Vrax led a peaceful civilization. The transformation was not easy, Dex continued. My generation struggled. We had been taught that warriors were the highest form of life. Suddenly, we were told to be engineers, teachers, doctors. Some of my people resisted. Some fought. Some died fighting against the future. In the audience, Krell sat quietly. The former resistance fighter had spent 5 years in rehabilitation, then 10 more years working to repair the damage his bombing campaign had caused. Now Krell served as director of the Vrax Reconstruction Memorial, a museum dedicated to teaching young Vrax about the transformation of their society. But slowly, we learned, Dex said. We learned that our discipline, our cooperation, our ability to work toward a common goal, these skills served peace as well as they had served war. Better, even, because in peace, we built things that lasted. In war, we only destroyed. Ambassador Insu, still serving as Earth's senior council representative though considerably older, stood when recognized by the Chancellor. The council feared humanity's methods. They thought we were barbaric. They thought occupation meant oppression. We were wrong, Chancellor Valeris admitted openly. We thought civilian warfare meant following rules and accepting half measures. We thought peace meant negotiated settlements and carefully drawn borders. Humanity showed us that real peace requires transformation, not just treaties. Dex held up a data crystal. I bring with me the formal application of the Vrax Federation for full council membership. Our application includes documentation of our democratic government structure, our civilian economy, our educational system, and our commitment to peaceful cooperation with all species. The vote was unanimous. The Vrax Federation became a full council member with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. As the chamber erupted in applause, Dex looked out at the audience and caught the eye of Governor Taewan, who sat in the Distinguished Visitors section. Tay-1. Now an admiral, though he no longer commanded fleets, nodded in acknowledgement. He had spent 15 years on Vrax Prime, overseeing the transformation from military dictatorship to civilian democracy. He had seen the resistance, the setbacks, the moments when everything seemed on the verge of collapse. But he had also seen the small victories, the first Vrax civilian business, the first democratic election, the first generation of Vrax children who grew up never knowing military service. After the ceremony, Tae-1 met with Dex privately in one of the council's diplomatic rooms. They sat across from each other, these two beings who had shaped each other's lives. I owe you an apology, Dex said. When we first met, I asked if Vrax could still be Vrax without being warriors. I doubted your methods. I doubted your intentions. And now? Tae-1 asked. Now I understand. You did not come to destroy Vrax culture. You came to save it. If the Dominion had continued, we would have eventually faced extinction. Either the Council would have destroyed us completely, or we would have expanded until we collapsed under our own weight. You gave us a different path. Tae-1 shook his head. We showed you the path. Your people chose to walk it. That choice makes all the difference. In another room, Admiral Kyung-suk spoke with Commander Phalis, one of the Council's military leaders who had been most opposed to human methods. I was wrong about your species, Phalis admitted. I thought your methods were cruel. I thought occupation was just conquest with better public relations. And now? Kyung-suk asked. Now, I understand the difference. Conquest takes and leaves nothing. Occupation that leads to transformation gives and creates something new. Phalis paused, his insectoid features showing uncertainty. There is another conflict developing. The Kresh Unity has begun aggressive expansion in the Outer Rim. The Council is considering requesting human assistance again. Kyung-suk nodded slowly. And the Council understands what that means? That we will not just stop the Kresh, but transform them? That we will occupy their worlds for decades? That we will dismantle their military culture and rebuild their civilization? Yes, Phalis said. We understand. And that is exactly what we want. The Council has learned that wars fought for half measures lead to endless conflict. Better to end them completely, as you do. Across the galaxy, the news of the Vrax Federation's admission to full council membership spread quickly. On Vrax Prime, celebrations filled the streets. Former soldiers and new civilians alike cheered the news. The past 23 years had been difficult, but they had worked. Specialist Su Jin, now an elder statesman of reconstruction efforts, watched the celebrations from her office window. She had spent her entire career helping rebuild post-conflict societies. The Vrax transformation was her greatest achievement. "They did it," said her assistant, a young human named Jun Wu. "They actually became a peaceful civilization." "They were always capable of peace," Su Jin corrected gently. "They just needed someone to show them how." On Earth, the news was met with quiet satisfaction. Humanity had proven something important, that wars could be ended permanently, that enemies could become friends, that transformation was possible. The cost had been high. The commitment had lasted decades. But the result was undeniable. Commander Sung Min, now retired and teaching military history at Earth's Academy, used the Vrax transformation as a key example in his lectures. "This is what makes human warfare different," he told his students. "We do not fight to win. We fight to ensure no one needs to fight again. Other species see war as a tool of policy. We see war as a disease to be cured." That evening, as the celebrations continued across the galaxy, Tae-Won stood on the observation deck of his ship, preparing to return to Earth. He had given most of his adult life to the Vrax transformation. Now it was complete. Lieutenant Jae-hee, now a commander and his second in command, joined him. "Any regrets, Admiral?" "Many," Tae-Won admitted. "People died because of decisions I made. Vrax who resisted the occupation. Humans who died in the resistance bombings. Every life lost weighs on me, but the millions of lives saved. The Vrax children who will grow up never knowing war. The billions across the galaxy who are safer because the Dominion no longer exists." Tae-Won nodded. "That is why we did it. Not for glory, not for victory, but for them, for the generations who will never have to experience what we experienced." Below them, Vrax Prime glowed with lights. Cities hummed with peaceful industry. Ships traveled between worlds carrying trade goods instead of weapons. Schools taught science and art instead of tactics and warfare. It was a different world than the one human forces had invaded 23 years ago. "The Council wants us to do this again," Jae-hee said quietly. "To crush unity." "I know," Tae-Won replied. "And we will, because that is what humans do. We do not fight wars to win them. We fight wars to end them, permanently." As his ship prepared to depart, Tae-Won took one last look at Vrax Prime.